Is Coaching Friday. I sent this out to my email list and to my Facebook group asking what questions you guys had about weight loss. I'm happy to help you during this really hard time. I know I'm going through a lot of things right now with all the changes that are going on in the world and all these unexpected, unprecedented things. So I'm happy to help. If you're on this watching, drop me a question. If you have one, I'm happy to answer it live, or if you're watching the replay, drop it after you watch the replay. If you have an extra question, I'm happy to jump on in the comments and reply to you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Megan Olson, and I am a nutrition practitioner, and I help women over 35 lose 20 to 50 or more pounds. And today we're going to be doing what I call Free Coaching Friday. This is something I'm going to be doing for the next few weeks just to help you guys out. And I know that so many of you are trying to lose weight, and I know this time is probably even a more challenging time for you to stick with your goals. So I'm happy to help answer some of these questions, and I'm just trying to get Instagram to come along for the ride, but it doesn't seem to want to. So just give me a second here. If you're watching the video and you're watching this live, let me know where you're watching from. I would love to hear from you. I actually got quite a few questions from people. I'm really excited about the amount of questions that I got today. So again, if you have a question, if you're watching this video, feel free to ask a question. No question is a stupid one, okay? So let's get started. I have a ton of questions from you guys. Okay, so first one that I got was about stress eating. So absolutely, right now is a time of high stress for many people. Things are changing, kids are at home, you're working from home, and you're trying to balance these things, plus food supplies are limited in some areas. So there's a lot going on. Obviously, stress is gonna be higher. Number one, give yourself some compassion, okay? If you're stress eating, it's okay. But what I do encourage you to do during this time, if you're stress eating, is to pay attention to your self-awareness. Most of us are not self-aware. We have learned to eat out of habit. We have learned to use food as comfort out of habit. Okay, and so therefore we just repeat those patterns and behaviors. Like, let's say Oreos have always been your go-to food. We just repeat that all the time, and we continue to always try to go back to those foods when we're feeling negative, when we're feeling fear, when we're feeling bad in a certain way. So if you're stress eating, I highly recommend that you pay attention to your self-awareness. Most of us just aren't self-aware. And that means in the moment, when you're in the pantry digging for the food, really stopping and saying to yourself, what am I feeling right now? What's going on? Am I sad? Do I really just need a hug from somebody? Or do I need to sit down and cry? Or do I need to go for a walk? What do I need more of to fill me up? Because as we all know, food doesn't really fill us up. Food's a temporary fill up. It really just helps us numb and check out of life, right? So again, if you're watching this video and you're just joining us, I've got a bunch of questions that I received from people this week, and I'm going to answer them. So if you've got a weight loss question and you're watching this video, jump on, let's join, and ask away. I'm happy to help you guys out. So the other question I got was, how many calories are too low? So we all know that calorie deficits are important for weight loss. But there is a point where you're eating too few calories. It can be detrimental to your metabolism and to your hormones, and all of those things need to be aligned in order to lose weight. So how do you know if your calories are too low? Well, number one, you should never be eating below your basal metabolic rate. So BMR is your baseline amount of calories that your body needs to survive, to breathe, for your brain to function, for your blood to flow, all of the basic things that your bodies do. If you were just to sit around all day, BMR is exactly what your body needs to survive. So your calories should never be lower than your BMR. And you can Google BMR, how to calculate BMR. There's a bunch of different ways to calculate it. There's 3 recognized calculations. In my cookbook that's coming out this summer, I actually give you one of those calculations in my cookbook because I talk a lot about weight loss in the cookbook. But you can go Google it and you can find out what that BMR is. And what I recommend is just simply taking 100 calories off of that BMR. Or not taking 100 calories, but knowing that you shouldn't be eating below that BMR, excuse me. You never want to be eating below the BMR. So what ends up happening when you go below the BMR, is your bodily functions tend to slow down, you plateau. This is where a lot of people I see doing this. I actually have an entire blog post on my website that talks about, eating too few calories and some of the recommendations I have for that. So you can go read that, and I'll put some of these things in the comments for you guys as well. You can read that if you want to. But looking at that BMR, making sure you're never going lower than your BMR. If you're using something like the Lose It app or MyFitnessPal, those apps tend to calculate your calorie deficit lower than your BMR, which is a dangerous place to be. So if you're calculating your calories using one of those apps or some online calculator, make sure it's no lower than that BMR. I never recommend any of my clients go below 1,300 calories, no matter how tall they are. Never below 1,300 calories, because it's not sustainable, right? I never want somebody battling cravings. I never want somebody being in that place of being hungry all the time, because it's really tough to lose weight that way. And it's just not a great way to be in, and you can lose weight without being in a super low calorie deficit, okay? So again, if you're watching this video and you have a question, feel free to drop it below. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have right now, okay? Another question I got was, I was doing good until I started working from home, and now I'm snacking all day. Okay, so I gotcha. Now you're home, your environment is different, and you kind of have the quarantine snacking going on, right? So here's a few simple things you can think about. Number one, drinking more water. It's always confusing we always tend to confuse hunger with thirst. So before you eat something, drink something, okay? The other thing is increase your protein intake. I can't stress enough that protein is so, so important for stabilizing blood sugar and stabilizing hunger, okay? So if you find yourself snacking, go for the protein. And if you're really not that hungry, the protein won't really seem attractive to you, okay? That's how you'll know you're really not that hungry. Okay. The other thing is replacing versus restricting. So instead of, finding, alternative things that are good for you, which I find a lot of people do this, but instead of finding, healthier treats or, protein bars or those kinds of things, my advice is allow yourself to have some of those things. And that may seem totally contrary to some of the things that you've heard other health professionals tell you in the past, but if you truly want a brownie, eat the brownie, because otherwise you're just going to think about it all day and obsess about it. Eat it, move on with yourself. Again, but it's about having that protein and keeping your blood sugar stable throughout the day. So if you're going to have the brownie, you better be eating some protein with it, okay? So again, if you're watching this video and you're just joining, this is Free Coaching Friday, and I love to answer your questions. So if you have a question, feel free to ask one in the comments. The next question I got was, what do I put in my coffee? Okay, so I'm just going to give you some background on myself. So in 2009, I lost 80 pounds. And I was addicted to like the venti Starbucks cafe mocha, and they have like 50 grams of sugar in it. It's probably one of the worst things you can put in your body first thing in the morning. So what I did is I cut out that venti mocha because it just wasn't serving my goals. And what I did was I went to black coffee with milk and some sugar. Okay. And you can do the same, real sugar, 1 to 2 tablespoons, and then over time, gradually start cutting back on the sugar. Don't go cold turkey and completely restrict yourself. Gradually cut back. So if sugar is the problem in this scenario, that's how you do it, okay? Because over time, you'll get to a place where you just won't need it anymore. And that's where I eventually landed. I just have milk in my coffee because milk tastes sweet enough for me, now that I've been eating a whole food, plant-based diet for a long time. And that's what happens with my clients too. But don't, go easy on yourself. It doesn't have to happen overnight, guys. The other thing for coffee is, milk is perfectly fine in coffee. Nut pods, I love nut pods in coffee. I love unsweetened almond milk, unsweetened cashew milk. Actually, cashew milk is my favorite thing because it's super creamy. And it's not really grainy like the almond milks, but there's so many different nut-based milks out there, dairy-free milks, try those out. And they're really, really a great source of extra vitamins and nutrients for you as well, okay? Okay, so the next question I got was how to stop sugar cravings. So I get this question all of the time, and there's many blog posts up on my website where I talk about sugar cravings. I'm still not able to get live on Instagram. Instagram's really been a bear this week. But for sugar cravings, there's a couple of things for you to think about. Number one, are you eating enough protein? Protein, 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 protein. I can't stress this enough. Protein stabilizes blood sugar. And the number one reason that I see with sugar cravings with people is because they're not eating enough protein. The women that I coach over 35, many of them will come to me and say, I'm eating enough protein. And then when we actually look at their food log, we discover that they're not eating enough protein. They just didn't realize that the amount they were eating was absolutely not enough for their goals. So if you are somebody who's trying to lose weight or maintain your weight, you have to up your protein. And this is so important if you're over 35, because after 35, we lose lean muscle mass. Hormones go down, which means we're losing muscle. So as we lose muscle, we have to be increasing the protein to counteract that. That's why we see weight gain very easily after 35, because we really have to pay attention to protein, carbs, and fat. And the protein is the number one thing that can stop sugar cravings in the moment. And if you are somebody, like I said earlier, who wants a brownie, you want a cookie, you better eat a chicken breast with the cookie or brownie. I know it sounds so yummy, but it's going to slow the blood sugar spike of that treat. So when you eat those treats, what usually happens is your blood sugar goes way up. Well, it can only go one place. It's going to go way down, crashing down, and then suddenly you're going to crave more and more treats because your blood sugar is always going to want to go up. Right? Plus our brain gets addicted to these treats. So the way to stop sugar cravings is to eat a lot more protein. So important if you're over 35. I can't stress that enough. More protein. You should be eating like 20 to 30 grams per meal, and it should be with every single snack. And the other thing I'm going to say about protein is that most of the women who I coach confuse fat for protein. So peanut butter, almonds, cashews, those are fats, not protein. Yes, they do have some protein in them, but they primarily consist of fat. So a lot of times people will be like, well, I'm eating enough protein, I'm eating peanut butter. The peanut butter is a fat, it's not a protein. And actually, fat is not shown to stabilize blood sugar the way that protein does. It's not a blood sugar stabilizer. So protein has to be increased, not fat. So be careful about what's a protein versus what's a fat. There is a difference, okay? The next question I got was, after a big weight loss surgery, why does the weight come on so quickly and return as fat with normal eating? So I don't know what your specific situation is with your weight loss surgery, and I don't know what your definition is of normal eating. If you're watching this video, I'm the person who wrote this question. Feel free to drop it in the comments and kind of clarify. But what I will say is this, I'm gonna make some assumptions here, okay? So if you are somebody who had weight loss surgery, I'm guessing that the way that you were eating wasn't normal, wasn't great, right? Because you were overweight. So, your eating habits led to having that surgery, right? And so probably, I'm guessing, is that if you just went back to however you were eating after your weight loss surgery, that it didn't really fix the problem. The weight loss surgery was probably a temporary fix to the problem. And the real problem is, figuring out how to better balance your plate with your protein, fat, and your carbohydrates so that you don't gain the weight back. I hear this a lot, and it's kind of concerning. I have a lot of women who come to me who have had weight loss surgery and they gain all this weight back. And weight loss surgery, that is a major surgery to go through. And it's a lot of stress on the body. And it just really surprises me that there isn't the fundamental coaching around, what should be eating after that kind of surgery and a lot of follow through. But, I'm not in that industry, but I do see a lot of women who have had this major surgery that's so expensive and, just so, hard on our bodies. And and they're gaining all this weight back. It's really discouraging to me. And it tells me that there's a missing ingredient in that process, right? And that missing ingredient is probably, not really understanding how to eat after the surgery, and most likely going back to whatever habits led us to getting overweight in the first place, right? And the other thing is that, mindset is a big thing here. There isn't a quick diet or pill or surgery that's going to fix weight, right? Because if we don't feel really good about ourselves, then we're going to rely on food to cope. And so if you go into something like a weight loss surgery and you think, oh, I'm going to lose weight and then I can just go back to the way I was eating, and your self-esteem isn't really that great, then what's going to happen when you have a bad day is you're going to stress eat, you're going to rely on food for comfort to kind of check out of life, right? Instead of really dealing with the emotions that have caused you to overeat and gain that weight in the first place, right? So, mindset is such an important part. Why do we repeat patterns and behaviors in our lives? That's a really important question that you have to ask yourself. And this kind of comes back to that question earlier about stress eating, when I said you have to be self-aware of the patterns and things that you're doing and asking yourself, well, why am I doing this? Why is this going on for me, right? And it's the same thing. If you've regained weight after you have done something, there's something missing, right? It doesn't mean you failed. It means, okay, I learned from this experience, and what can I take away? What worked? What didn't work? And how can I learn and grow and keep moving forward until I reach my goal, right? And that is the same thing I'm going to recommend for you. The surgery wasn't a failure. It wasn't a waste of time or money, but it was a valuable learning lesson. And it probably taught you some things about yourself that maybe you weren't quite willing to face, maybe not feeling good enough about yourself, maybe not really coming to terms that you really do have to change the way you eat to keep weight off for the rest of your life. And sometimes we're just not ready to hear those things or deal with those things, and that's okay. You will be ready, and you'll know when you're ready when that time comes. Okay, so a couple more questions. And again, if you're watching this, feel free to drop a question in the comments below. I'm happy to answer. I'm still trying to get Instagram to cooperate, but it's not. So the next question that I got, this one's a little bit lengthy, and this is another one that I hear a lot from people. It says, I try to eat clean, track my calories, and exercise regularly, and sometimes I feel like I'm seeing results. Other days I don't see any. When I weigh myself, I don't see any progress. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't know if carb cycling is for me, keto, paleo, or just classic, or even if my workouts are right for me. I've been doing this for 3 months and I see little results. How do I know if I'm doing things the right way? Oh, this is such a great question. And you know what? It's one that I hear all the time from women. What diet should I do? How should I exercise? I'm not seeing results. I'm weighing myself. Okay, so let's break this down because there's a lot to this question. And it's probably one you can relate to, hopefully. So number one, with my clients, I don't let them weigh themselves. Throw out that scale. Throw it out. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a number. The scale is one piece of data in the whole grand scheme of things. And what I am going to help you understand is that the scale is not valuable. It's only valuable every once in a while. If you're stepping on the scale every single day, every single week, it is the fastest way to demotivate you from doing whatever it is to reach your goals. So throw it out. I don't allow my clients to weigh themselves unless I tell them to, and that's when we're gathering data to look at their calories. So the scale is not meaningful, and most of us put an emotional meaning behind that scale, okay? So throw it out, it means nothing. If you're losing a ½ pound a week, that is still a success. If you're losing 1 pound a week, that is still a success, okay? If you're gaining weight every week, then something has to be tweaked. It doesn't mean you're failing. But again, throw the scale out. There's much more important things to be focusing on here, like your digestion, your energy, your sleep, your stress, how you're feeling before and after you're eating, the self-awareness if you're emotionally eating. That is much more important to pay attention to. And sometimes when we have been dieting and exercising and eating clean, we really stop paying attention to those things, right? All of a sudden we don't know when we're full, we don't know when we're satisfied, and we don't know why we're eating because we're eating, right? We're just doing it because some diet told us to. So get rid of the rules. Get rid of everything, okay? It's not helpful with the scale. 100%. And again, if you are weighing yourself, even if you're losing a half of a pound, that is still a victory. If, I just want to say this. Slow weight loss is the best weight loss because it's more sustainable. The faster you lose weight, the harder it is going to be to keep that weight off. So slow, slow, slow. Don't be in a rush to do this because you want to be able to sustain it the rest of your life. It doesn't feel good to always to be fighting with food and having to lose weight and be in a calorie deficit. So don't be in a rush to do this, okay? Number 2, this person said, I try to eat clean and exercise regularly, and sometimes I feel like I'm seeing results. I don't know if I should do carb cycling, keto, paleo, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so number 1, I don't know what your definition of clean eating is, but what I will tell you is that, many of my clients will come to me and say, I'm eating really clean. And what I have discovered is, yes, that means they're eating healthy foods. They're eating proteins, they're eating vegetables, they're eating carbs. But here's what's happening. They're not paying attention to their calories, and they're not in a calorie deficit, and they're not eating enough calories generally, which means you're not going to lose any weight. Their fat loss hormones are out of balance, so that means they have a lot of cravings. They're always battling sugar. And a lot of times they are not eating enough carbs. I say this in my free weight loss training. Carbs are so important, and it's the number 1 thing women cut out. I don't know why, but fiber is a carb, and fiber is scientifically shown in research to help you lose weight. It's proven, and it's been proven for decades and decades and decades. So, anytime you go low carb or keto or do any of these things, you're immediately going to gain the weight back because most of it's water weight. And I don't know about you, but most of my clients and me, for me personally, I don't want to go a life without fries and pizza and, cookies. If you're willing to sacrifice and not eat any of those foods the rest of your life, then those diets will work great. But, when you say you're eating clean, you really have to think about those things. Are you eating enough calories? Are you in a calorie deficit? How long have you been in that deficit? Are you over-exercising? Because over-exercise increases cortisol, which increases fat storage. Are you not eating enough carbs with fiber? Are you, not getting enough protein? We talked about that earlier too. Protein, 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 super important. So you don't need to be doing keto. You don't need to be doing paleo or carb cycling. As a matter of fact, I don't recommend you do those things. The vast majority of women who are over 35 trying to lose weight, you don't need to be doing these things. These are advanced nutrition things that we do for women who are in the gym who really want to get buff and lean. And if that's you, that might be, something you want to do. But for the vast majority of women, that's too complex. You don't need to do that. I just had a client the other day who I was going over her nutrition plan with her, and she said, this feels so easy compared to everything else I've been doing. I'm like, yeah, because sometimes we think it has to be complicated, but it doesn't. It should be easy. Whatever you do should be feeling like it's something you can do every single day. And I'm sure carb cycling, paleo, and keto, those probably don't feel like something you can do every day, right? So really think about that. If you feel like you're eating clean, think about the things that I said, right? Are you over-exercising? Are you not in a calorie deficit? Are your fat loss hormones balanced or not? Are you having a lot of cravings? Are you not eating enough fibrous carbs? All of those things really do matter. And once you get those things aligned, everything will happen. All the weight will start coming off. And, if you're over-exercising, back off the exercise. You do not need to exercise to lose weight. And I talk about that in my free weight loss training. It's movement, it's not exercise, okay? As a matter of fact, doing too much exercise is going to cause you to gain weight or to not gain weight. So opposite effects. I know our brains don't believe that really happens, but it does truly happen, okay? So next, this is the last question that I got. So if you guys have another question, drop it in the comments. I'm happy to answer. So if you're over 35 with only 10 pounds to lose, what do you recommend for nutrition and keeping hormones in balance? I've never been good with a healthy breakfast eating and struggle with sugar cravings all the time. So I'd love to get a few ideas on ways to start my day to help minimize the cravings. I just came off a program heavily focused on calories in, calories out. So your talk that you posted was really helpful and made a lot of sense to me. Yeah, so she's talking about the free weight loss training I talked about, where I talk about calories in, calories out, is an old myth. So I'm really happy that that was something that resonated with you, because that's something I see a lot of women doing. They just think it's about the numbers, and it's not. There's more to it than the numbers, guys. So number one, if you're over 35 and you have only 10 pounds to lose, it's the same thing. It's the same prognosis, even if you have 20, 30, 50, or 100 pounds to lose. You have to be in a slight calorie deficit. You have to pay attention to how you're working out, and you have to balance those fat loss hormones, insulin, leptin, ghrelin, and cortisol. Really important to balance those hormones. And the way you balance those hormones, again, is eating more protein. Protein is going to squash those cravings. I can't stress that enough. Remember, you know, I hear people say this all the time. They're like, I'm eating really well and I have all these cravings. So if you're having cravings, it's always a symptom of something. So you really have to ask yourself, what could this be telling me? What am I maybe not getting enough of? If I'm not getting enough protein, remember I said earlier that a lot of times, you know, women that I've worked with, they are assuming that protein is peanut butter. Peanut butter isn't a protein, it's a fat. Right? So we have to really pay attention to what is really a protein. And you can get protein from vegetables too. So pay attention to that. As far as the breakfast, so with breakfast, I talk about this in my free training as well. So breakfast is so important to getting your cravings under control. And again, it goes back to high protein breakfast. And I gave an example of that in my free weight loss training. And that breakfast should always be high protein. And the reason we want high protein is because it stabilizes your blood sugar. So first thing in the morning, if you're eating something really high in sugar, guess what? You're going to crave more sugar all day long. And it's actually shown in studies that women who start their day with a high sugary food, they tend to eat more calories throughout the day. And after 35, this is really important because of the changing hormones. We want to be getting that high protein breakfast in to really stabilize blood sugar. So anytime throughout the day, we want to be getting that protein with any meal snack that we're eating, but so important to be getting that protein first thing at breakfast, okay? So here's some ideas for protein at breakfast. Eggs with veggies. You can add in a little extra virgin olive oil. Eggs are a great source of protein. I know eggs are not for everyone, but they're really easy. Make an egg bake, make egg muffins, and you can put virtually any type of vegetable into eggs and they're going to taste good. You know, I have found that a lot of my clients will say that they don't like eggs, but they actually love them more after they start adding vegetables, because vegetables add flavor, they add natural sweetness and a lot of nutrition. So it's a great way to start your day with eggs. Now, if you're not an egg person, you can be doing something that's egg-free. I have a ton of egg-free recipes on my website. Breakfast meatballs, I've got breakfast hashes. So you're grounding up some type of meat with some vegetables, and then all you have to do in the morning is heat it up and eat that for breakfast. Breakfast hashes, I love breakfast hashes. It's a great way to mix it up so you're not always eating eggs every morning. Now, I don't recommend doing things like smoothies and oatmeal and those kinds of things unless you're really balancing them with a lot of protein. Most people are drinking a smoothie and not getting enough protein into the smoothie. So if you're doing a smoothie, you know, watch how much fruit you're putting in. Add a ton of veggies and add some protein powder, add some Greek yogurt, add cottage cheese, whatever you have, but make sure it's really heavily protein. It should be like 80% protein in that breakfast. So that's why I don't really recommend smoothies until, you know, later in the day. That first breakfast morning should be right thing in the morning. Now, this person, what you said is, I've never been a good or healthy breakfast eater and I struggle with sugar cravings all the time. So you know what you need to work on here. Right? You said it right here. I've never been a good or healthy breakfast eater. So work on breakfast. It's not magically going to work itself, right? So you know that's a struggle for you. So you got to work on that. And you know what? Here's the thing. If you don't like to eat as soon as you get up in the morning, that's totally fine. You don't have to eat breakfast at a specific time. Breakfast is whenever you decide. So if you want to eat breakfast at 10 o'clock, eat breakfast at 10 o'clock, but you should be eating 3 meals a day, okay? So work on that healthy breakfast. I have a ton of free breakfast high protein recipes on my website. I'll drop it in the comments here so you can grab that free download. And there's a bunch of ideas in there for high protein breakfast for you. And if you're somebody who doesn't like eggs, I have one that's egg free too. So I can send that to you. Just put a comment below if you want the egg free one instead. But those are some options for you. So number one is the protocol is the same whether you have 10 pounds to lose or 100 pounds to lose. It's balancing the hormones, it's getting into that slight calorie deficit and paying attention to how you're moving. And then number two, really working on breakfast. And number three, getting more protein, a lot more protein to squash those cravings. And then the other thing is working on high protein breakfast ideas. And I gave you some ideas here, okay? So hopefully that helps. Let's see, if you guys have questions, just drop them in the comments. Will your program work for women over 60? Yeah, the majority of the women in the program are 55 to 70 years old. So yes, absolutely. Oh, there's Leanne. I'm over 60 and I've been working with Megan. There has been a huge transformation. Yeah, Leanne, I don't remember how much weight you've lost so far, Leanne, but Leanne's been working with me for about a year and she has done amazing. So if anybody has any questions, you can definitely ask Leanne about it. But she has done awesome, and she lost her mom last year. And I don't say that as a good thing, but I say it as, she was faced with a real life challenge and tragedy, and she still killed it and did amazing. And she's still in the group, and she's so positive and uplifting and motivating to all the women that are in that group. So yeah. Any other questions from anybody? Okay, well, I will drop a couple of free things here in the comments. Watch for those later today. I'll drop that high protein breakfast guide in here. And I also have a guide on sugar cravings that gives you 3 tips. I'll throw that in here, as well as that free weight loss training. So there's 3 things I will drop in here. If you're watching the replay of this, feel free to drop in a question. I'm happy to try to answer that. And if you guys liked this free coaching Friday, let me know in the comments. Tell me, okay? Let me know if this is something that we should continue doing. Okay. Anyways, I hope you guys are all staying safe, healthy, and happy. I'll talk to you soon.